Today we begin our lecture discussion on politics, governance, and globalization, and the unlocking of difficulties. Today I'm going to present to you some of the main concepts, the main ideas in political governance and globalization, and hoping that this will pave the way for you to be able to navigate freely in our discussion, because it's important that we learn these concepts and these terms in order for us to be able to relate and analyze some of the important problems and challenges and issues of political governance. So, welcome aboard, and I hope that all of you are all settled so that we will be ready with our discussion. One of the terms that we usually encounter in the study of political globalization is the word nation. And the word nation is often simultaneously or interchangeably used when referring to the state. Sometimes we say state, sometimes we say nation. So let us have some clear understanding of what a nation is, because although nation and state are interchangeably used on many occasions, both have a different connotation, especially if they are used in a different or a more technical situation. So first, let us understand the meaning of the word nation. So when we say nation, it is a large body of people united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular territory or territories, and it is typically has its own government, laws, and institutions, which may be either independent or part of a larger political entity, such as a federation or confederation. And nations often have a collective sense of identity and shared values that help to define and either define their unique character and differentiate them from other groups of people. So I think in this kind of description or definition, the most important phrase that describe the word nation is that nation often have a collective sense of identity. And this collective sense of identity is shared by the members of this group because perhaps they are united by ethnicity, they are united by their own values or religion, or they are united by their language. So, for example, when the people of the Korean Peninsula, sometimes they refer to themselves as Korean. Their nationality is Korean. They belong to Korea. But it could be that some of them are in North Korea or in South Korea. They are living in two different states, but they are one nation because of their language, their culture, their values, and their history. So that is what we mean by nation. That's why although sometimes in a common way or in passing we use them interchangeably with the word state, it is still important that we understand and comprehend the difference between a nation and a state. So we come now to the term state, because previously I said that sometimes the term state is interchanged with nation. So at this point in time, let me give you a full description of what a state is. So a state is a politically organized territory within a permanent population, defined territory, and a government that exercises sovereignty over its internal and external affairs. States are typically recognized as independent entities by other states and operate within a system of international relations. So the government of a state has authority over its population and territory, including the power to make and enforce laws, levy taxes, and engage in diplomatic relations and other states. So states may vary in their political systems, such as democratic, autocratic, or theocratic, and can range from small city states to large nation states. And to differentiate the word state from nation in a technical sense, we should always remember the descriptor that the state is a juridical concept. It is a concept of jurisdictions, it is a concept of legality, so as compared with nation, which is broader. But in our contemporary world, we use the word nation state together because there is a because most of the players in the international system is referred to as nation state. And we will proceed to that portion, and we will define to you, I will define to you the meaning of the word nation state. And here we come to another term that we need to define, which is sovereignty. Sovereignty is one important characteristics of a state. So sovereignty refers to the supreme authority or power of a state to govern itself and to make decisions within its own territory without interference from external forces. It encompasses the right to exercise control over its internal and external affairs, including the ability to enact laws, administer justice, levy taxes, conduct foreign relation, and sovereignty is a fundamental principle of modern statehood and is recognized under international law. Although the extent and exercise of sovereignty can vary depending on factors such as the state's political system, international agreement, and the balance of power in the global arena. So there are limitations to sovereignty. What I mean of limitations is that there are different types of sovereignty. Some states may have some limited form of sovereignty owing to their commitment to a confederation or a federation, or perhaps because of a treaty, or perhaps a particular state is a protectorate of another country, so its sovereignty might be limited. So let's take for example some of the smaller countries like Sikkim or Bhutan. Some of these are independent states, and yet owing to their territorial or their location or being a protectorate of another country, their sovereignty might be limited, or their exercise of sovereignty might be limited in a particular way. Or sometimes when a particular country signs up with a particular treaty or protocol, sometimes it might infringe on it might infringe on their sovereignty. Like for example, if a country has committed to the jurisdiction of the Rome Statute, for example. So when you submit yourself to this kind of arrangement, there's also a drawback because it tends to limit your exercise of absolute power or absolute jurisdiction over your subjects and your territory. So ngayon, dumako tayo sa term na nation state. And usually, technically, ito yung palagi nating naririnig when talking about international relations or global affairs. And because of this, it's important for us to understand the meaning of the nation state. Kasi kung yung kanina when we say about the nation, it talks about the loyalty of people based on their perceived affiliation because of sameness of culture, or maybe a unifying factor that unites them as one people. And the state also as a juridical concept. But the nation state is a modern concept because it talks about loyalty. Loyalty because of the existing state of affairs, or the existing juridical entity. Like for example, when you say United States, you always consider yourself as American. Or perhaps say People's Republic of China, and you say that you are Chinese. Although within that particular state, there are several nationalities that are enclosed within that kind of state, but it develops another form or another unique form of loyalty to the jurisdiction of the state. This is actually the meaning of the nation state as we know it in the modern parlance. And here in the slide, you can see the two definitions that I have read from the dictionary, and perhaps this will help us clarify the meaning of the word nation state as it applies to our contemporary world. And this nation state that we know of is the one that we identified as the major elements in the international in international relations or in the community of nations. Although there are also other non-state actors that are interacting with each other in a globalized world, and yet we see the prominence of the nation state as one of the most important element in the international system. And later on, we will try to explore also the idea whether the nation state will endure or whether it will fade away or whether it will be subsumed in a different kind of organization, especially with the rise of globalism and also because of regionalism. Actually, ay nako, bakit ito naging ganito? So, if we will ask the question, is it possible to have one state with many nationalities within it? The answer is yes. For example, a small country in Europe known as Belgium, you can find out that there are many different types of nationality within this kind of jurisdiction. Like, for example, in Belgium, you have the Walloon, you have the Dutch, you have the French, and etc., etc. So, this is an example of one state with many nationalities within it. But the loyalty of the people is with the Kingdom of Belgium, and they always identify themselves as Belgian. So that's an example of a nation state. Now, another term that we need also to understand is the word community of nations. Kasi baka akalain natin na ito ay isang colloquial term like community of nations, but the word community of nation has an official status, and it is a recognized term describing the state of world affairs that we have today. So the term community of nation refers to the collective group of sovereign states that interact and cooperate with each other within the international system. It encompasses all countries around the world, regardless of their size, political system, or level of development. So the community of nations engages in various forms of diplomacy, of trade, cultural exchange, and international cooperation to address common challenges and promote shared interests. Sometimes the term community of nations is used synonymously with the term international community, which highlights the interconnectedness and interdependence of countries in addressing global issues such as peace and security, human rights, environmental sustainability, and economic development. And overall, the community of nations represents the complex web of relationships and interactions between sovereign states, each within its own interests, priorities, and responsibilities, but all ultimately contributing to the functioning of the international system. So, in order to become a member of the community of nations, you must be a sovereign state and you must enjoy the recognition of at least one or two of the superpowers, and you can demonstrate your ability to be able to fulfill your international obligations. And let us go back to the idea of state sovereignty. And it says, what is its origin? So, participation in international organizations, active participation in international organizations such as the United Nations, regional bodies, and other multilateral institutions is often considered a hallmark of membership in the community of nations. Membership in these organizations allows states to engage in diplomatic dialogue, address common challenges, and contribute to global governance. Bilateral and multilateral relations also means engaging in diplomatic relations with other states and participating in regional and global forums for cooperations are important for integration into the community of nations. Building alliances, fostering partnerships, and collaborating on issues of mutual interest contribute to a state's standing and influence within the international community. And to further improve our understanding of sovereignty, let us understand it also from the point of its history and evolution. So, before the Treaty of Westphalia, the political landscape in Europe was characterized by feudalism and the dominance of monarchs who held varying degrees of power over their territories. However, the Peace of Westphalia introduced several principles that laid the foundation for the concept of state sovereignty. And perhaps you will wonder why we refer to Europe as when we talk about the development of the concept of sovereignty and nation states. And I think perhaps because the kind of polity that we have today has its origin in Europe, especially our international system. So, in talking about sovereignty, there are several factors that we need to consider. Number one is territorial integrity. The Treaty of Westphalia affirmed the principle of territorial integrity, which recognized the sovereignty of states over their own territory. This meant that rulers had exclusive authority within their boundaries and that external interference in their internal affairs was generally prohibited. Then another is the recognition of states. The Peace of Westphalia formalized the recognition of independent states as the primary actors in international relations. It established the principle of equality among sovereign states, regardless of their size or of their powers. And there's also the non interference. The treaty promoted the idea of non interference in the domestic affairs of other states, and this principle of non interference contributed to the concept of state sovereignty by emphasizing autonomy of the states to govern themselves without external interference. And the Treaty of Westphalia also highlight the importance of secular authority or the separation of the church and state and the promotion of secularization.